Growing up, I always found that there was a ceiling on what we were supposed to be capable of, like a girl. There was defined expectations about being polite, having good manners, pleasing people, and fitting into a certain box, a certain prescription as to girls do this, but they don't do that. And so often it can leave us conforming at the expense of our authenticity, pleasing people and putting others before ourselves. And having that pressure to conform, but also that pressure to do well, to succeed, to please others, to make people proud, to not fail, to be perfect. And as a result, we so often hide our achievements. We put it down to something outside of ourselves, and we don't believe that we're good enough. After I left the corporate world, I turned my back on my career. I left a relationship of 7 years at the same time and really set about some self-discovery. And this really helped me uncover my authenticity. And it taught me how to live with balance, but also meaning and purpose, in line with who we are, not trying to fit into a box that someone else prescribes. And it taught me how we unlock our potential as women, but also live a life with meaning and purpose and strike the balance. Now I'm a life coach and author of 2 books, and I help women unlock their potential and be their best, but with balance, without burning out in the process. During the years I've worked in personal development, I've uncovered some of the strengths that we have as women and how we can leverage them to thrive at life. But it was a long journey, and it began with me trying to dumb down the very skills and strengths that I now sell as the way that we succeed. Over those years, I too struggled with self-confidence, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, and self-worth, people-pleasing, always wanting everything to be perfect, and comparing to others and always feeling like I'd fallen short. Each promotion brought with it that feeling of, can I really do this? Am I really as good as they think I am, or have they got it all wrong? And each new relationship brought with it that seeking validation as only someone that does not love themselves enough can. You see, as women, we can often be our own undoing. I know I used to be. I didn't fit in because I was too busy trying to conform and disowned my authenticity. I felt fat and ugly because I compared myself to airbrushed size 8 magazine models. I was busy and burned out because I was too busy trying to be all things to all people and please everybody else around me. I was unhappy in relationships because I didn't think I deserved any better. And I didn't get promoted as many times as I could have because I didn't think I qualified for the job, or I worried about taking the risk, the fear of failing. And I probably didn't get paid as much as I could have because I asked for less. You see, as women, we set the boundaries as to what's acceptable in terms of our treatment. If we go into a room feeling like we're second class, or like we don't belong, or we don't deserve something, then we create the conditions for that to be accepted by others. There are many things that we're good at as women, but unfortunately our brains are wired to always think of the negative. If people give you pieces of positive feedback and maybe one piece of negative feedback in the mix, it's that we hone in on, that we ruminate on, it's that our minds focus on. As women, we're so busy thinking about what we haven't got and all the things that we failed at and the things that maybe we want to change about ourselves. We forget all of those things that we're good at, all of the things that we've done well, and all of the things that probably other people are wishing they had that we already have. And we take that for granted. Now, I'm not going to suggest that feminine traits are superior by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm suggesting here is about a balance. So regardless of our gender, we have masculine and feminine traits within us all. But over the years, that balance has been far too much swayed in the masculine direction. If we look at tradition in our cultures, our heads of government, heads of business, heads of community, heads of family, all of those positions of authority and influence have traditionally been occupied by men. So there's been a lot more masculine traits at play, and that has become the role model, the success, the model that's been sold as the way to be, particularly in leadership. And now more women are getting a seat at the table, we're beginning to see this balance redress. And whether we're male or female, we need to have a balance of masculine and feminine traits. And over the years, feminine traits have not been valued, particularly in men. Men are told to dumb down their feminine side. They worry it shows them as weak. And women too. I remember when I was first in my very early stages of leadership roles, I would leave my Jess hat at the door and feel like I had to be somebody else. And so often I've seen over the years, women feel like they need to be more like men to succeed at work, to climb the career ladder. When in fact all they need is to embrace who they are, their authenticity, and be more like themselves, like a girl, and to believe that they're capable and that they are enough. When Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said she wanted to bring kindness back into government, she wasn't talking about the government being weak, but rather strong on issues that matter, issues of the heart. Rather strong on not accepting that a developed country will have child poverty or increasing suicide rates. As women, we have these skills that are becoming more and more prevalent and important, particularly in the workplace. Emotional intelligence being one that's talked about a lot, and something as women that we're naturally good at, yet we haven't embraced over the years as much as we could have, and something we can leverage to be the best that we can be. Embracing our feminine traits like honesty, generosity, sensitivity, empathy, humility, passion, tolerance, intuition, our nurturing, thoughtful, patient, expressive side. Regardless of gender, these are key skills, whether we're at work or at home, and skills that we can leverage for our success. Continually as women, we are waiting for someone to sign our permission slip to succeed. And we're all very busy. One of the reasons we're so busy is that as women we wear many hats. We're driven by the need to succeed and for everything to be perfect and to not let anybody down. So we end up turning up to work often to do a full-time job and to be the best that we can be, to be ambitious, chase the promotion, look after our career. And then we go home and we do it all again. With our relationships, with our children, with our families, with our friends, the social engagements, the organising of the house, the cooking of the meals, all whilst trying to fit in the time to care for ourselves so that we look good and we feel healthy and we've committed ourselves to going to the gym or to yoga. And from this can come an inability to say no, like we might let people down, or it might look like we can't cope. And then the guilt trip starts. We're pretty good at that as women. This inability to say no means that we take on far too many commitments, we overschedule ourselves, and we take on other people's priorities like they're our own. But like they say in the aeroplane safety demonstration, you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help others. And looking after ourselves is key in terms of being able to give to others and to do all of these things that we want to do with our life. Yet we rarely take time for this. Sometimes we feel it's selfish to take time out for ourselves, especially if there's so much other stuff that needs to be done and so many other people that rely on us. But when we take time out for ourselves, we become a more tolerant, more centered, more energetic, better person, and everybody benefits from that. And whilst we're on the subject of being a better person, that's another thing as women, that so often we can find ourselves falling short. We have a tendency to compare ourselves to others, whether that be photos in a magazine or a friend on Facebook. And of course, these comparisons that we use are not real. What we look at is only half the story, the good half. So in a magazine, we see an airbrushed picture. So it looks perfect, but it isn't real. So if we try and expect ourselves to look like that, we're always going to fail because we're comparing to an unrealistic version of something that doesn't exist. And similarly, when we look at people's Facebook lives, it's a pseudo-perfect life because we don't post everything on Facebook. We post the stuff that looks good. We don't tend to post everything, just the stuff that we think will look good. So when we compare someone else's life and feel like we're falling short, it's because we're only looking at one side of the coin. And again, we're comparing to something that isn't real. And when we compare to something that isn't real, we're setting ourselves up to fail. No wonder we always feel like we're falling short, because perfect doesn't exist. And it takes us away from realizing all the things we already have that make us who we are. And there will never be a better you. You are the version of you, and you'll always make the best version of yourself than a second best version of anybody else. Unfortunately, there will always be somebody that's more beautiful, more clever, more talented, more rich, more intelligent than us, but there will also be the reverse of that, and people that are not as good as us in all of those areas. So instead of comparing to others, it pays to focus on us. And it's natural for us to have this nagging self-doubt in the back of our mind. It's something that a lot of women suffer from. I spent most of my career doubting my abilities, and promotions didn't help. I used to think, I'm not quite sure I can do this. like I'm acting in a play and I'm going to get found out. But each time, more promotions came. The same with writing a book. I used to think, who am I to do this? And being aware of this mindset helps us change it. So stop now and think of 3 things that you're good at. And if you can't think of it yourself, ask your friends. They know you best. And sometimes we find it hard to talk about our own strengths. So talk to others about what they value in you. And remember this, because our brains are wired to think more negatively. And we need to change that in a bid to help overcome our self-doubt. Because we are all human, and as a result, we're not perfect, and sometimes we're going to fail. But we have this tendency to beat ourselves up over it. We have quite a critical voice in our heads, and often we're not aware of what it's telling us, the things that it says. And when we tune into this voice, we say things to ourselves that we would never dream of saying to other people. Think back to when your best friend last asked you for some advice on a really bad relationship choice or a really hideous outfit they've just bought. How do we tackle that? Generally, we're truthful but kind. Yet the way we speak to ourselves about our appearance, about when we get things wrong, make mistakes, we're not as forgiving. So be your own best friend, and that voice in your head, remind it that it is talking to a friend. Yes, it can be truthful, but it should also be kind. And we do set such high standards, and sometimes it doesn't matter what we achieve, it's never enough. But we don't have to be a CEO, climb Everest, or be Prime Minister to be valued, to be enough. We do that just by turning up.